Commander Peter Richardson stared through the reinforced glass window of the Kuiper Belt Research Station, his eyes fixed on the distant spot where their latest test had warped the very fabric of space. The year was 2245, and humanity had just crossed a line that would change everything. "The readings are stable," Dr. Alice Manning announced from her station, her voice steady despite the excitement that made her hands shake. "The reality fabric is holding at 15% variance. It's working, Peter. It's actually working." The commander nodded slowly, still processing what they had achieved. After 10 years of research, Project Infinity had succeeded in manipulating the basic structure of reality itself. Behind him, Admiral Frank Howard cleared his throat, drawing attention from the dozen scientists scattered around the control room. "Explain it to me again," the Admiral said, his weathered face showing both concern and curiosity. "In simple terms." Peter turned from the window and walked to the central hologram display. With a wave of his hand, he brought up the image of their test device, a small probe about the size of a car, now surrounded by a shimming field of altered spacetime. "Think of reality as a piece of cloth," Peter began, using the analogy they had developed for military briefings. "Until now, we could only work with what was on the surface, but we've discovered how to reach beneath it, to grab the threads themselves and reshape them." Dr. Manning stepped forward, her dark hair streaked with premature gray from years of stress and late nights. "The quantum engine we've developed doesn't just bend space or time. It rewrites the rules that govern them. In the area around our test probe, we can change how reality works." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "And you're sure it's safe?" Before either scientist could answer, the station's alarms began to blare. Red warning lights flashed across the pristine white walls, and the holographic displays flickered with interference. "Energy spike," called out Lieutenant Ryan Parker from the sensor station. "Massive reading coming from Sector 7. Peter rushed to the lieutenant's screen, his heart racing. The numbers he saw there didn't make sense. They showed energy levels that dwarfed their own experiment by orders of magnitude. "Get me visual," he ordered. The main screen lit up with an image of empty space, then zoomed in on what looked like a tear in the fabric of reality itself. Golden light poured from the rift, and strange symbols appeared in the space around it, glowing with an inner fire that hurt the eyes. "Those aren't random," Dr. Manning whispered, her face pale. "Those are words. Someone or something is writing in space itself." Admiral Howard's voice cut through the tension. "Can you translate?" "Working on it," she replied, her fingers flying over her console. "The patterns share similarities with several ancient Earth languages, but they're shifting, changing as we watch." The message finally stabilized, and the translation appeared on their screens. "Cease your meddling with the foundations of creation." Silence fell over the control room. Peter felt a chill run down his spine as he realized the implications. They weren't alone in their understanding of reality's deeper nature, and whatever had sent this message had powers far beyond their own. "Sir," Lieutenant Parker called out, his voice shaking slightly. "I'm detecting similar energy signatures from multiple points across the solar system. Whatever sent this, they're watching us. They have been for a while." Admiral Howard straightened his uniform and squared his shoulders. "Send a message back. Tell them humanity respectfully acknowledges their communication, but will continue its scientific advancement." "Frank," Peter started to protest, but the Admiral cut him off. "If they wanted to stop us, they would have done more than send a warning," Howard said firmly. "They're testing us, seeing how we'll react. And humanity doesn't back down from challenges." Dr. Manning's console beeped again. "Commander, the reality variance readings from our test, they're still stable. Whatever this entity is, it hasn't interfered with our experiment." Peter walked back to the window, looking out at their test probe still surrounded by its reality-altering field. "Maybe they can't," he said quietly. "Maybe that's why they're worried." Over the next few hours, the station buzzed with activity. Additional security personnel arrived from Earth via the quantum tunnels, and every piece of data from their experiment was backed up to secure servers across the solar system. Peter found himself in his office, reviewing the sensor logs with Dr. Manning when Admiral Howard entered with news from Earth Command. "The Security Council has made their decision," the Admiral announced. "Project Infinity is being expanded. They want a weapons platform that can utilize this technology. A ship capable of enforcing our reality against whatever's out there." "A reality-ending dreadnought," Peter said, testing the words. "You're talking about building a ship that could theoretically rewrite the laws of physics themselves." "Multiple ships," Howard corrected. "A fleet of them. And you two are going to help us build them." Alice Manning stood up, her face showing both excitement and concern. "The power requirements alone would be enormous. We'd need to develop new forms of energy generation, new materials to handle the strain." "You'll have whatever resources you need," the Admiral assured her. "Earth is unified on this. We've discovered we're not alone in the universe, and our neighbors have godlike powers. We need to level the playing field." Peter looked back at the sensor readings, at the elegant equations that described their breakthrough in reality manipulation. "We're about to change everything," he said softly. "Are we ready for that responsibility?" Admiral Howard placed a hand on Peter's shoulder. "Ready or not, we no longer have a choice. Something's been watching us, waiting to see if we'd reach this point. Now we have to show them that humanity deserves its place among the powers of the universe." As if in response to his words, the station's lights flickered, and for a moment, the stars visible through the window seemed to shift position. When everything stabilized, new words hung in space, written in letters of fire. "You have been warned. What comes next is of your own choosing." Peter exchanged looks with Alice and the Admiral. They all knew that humanity had just entered a new era, one where the very fabric of reality was both a weapon and a battlefield. The race to build humanity's reality-ending dreadnoughts had begun, and the gods themselves were watching with growing concern. In the depths of space, their small test probe continued its work, its reality warping field a tiny beacon of human potential that would soon grow into something that would make even the gods think twice about challenging Earth. 3 days after the mysterious message appeared, the Kuiper Belt Research Station hummed with nervous energy. Dr. Alice Manning hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night, her mind racing with new calculations and possibilities. The coffee in her mug had gone cold, forgotten as she stared at the latest sensor readings. "They're getting closer," she told Commander Peter Richardson as he entered the lab. "The energy signatures we detected. They're moving through the solar system in a pattern." Peter leaned over her shoulder to look at the display. "They're testing our detection capabilities," he said, his voice grim. "Seeing how well we can track them." The room's lights suddenly dimmed, and the air grew heavy with an odd pressure. Both scientists turned as golden light began seeping through the walls like water through paper. The light pooled in the center of the room, taking shape slowly. "Security team to the main lab," Peter called into his comm unit, but only static answered. The light solidified into 3 tall figures. They looked almost human, but their skin shimmered like starlight, and their eyes held galaxies in their depths. The tallest of them stepped forward. "We are the Watchers," it said in a voice that seemed to echo from everywhere at once. "We have guided reality since the first moments of creation." Alice stood her ground, though her heart hammered in her chest. "Why show yourselves now?" "Because you have reached the threshold," another Watcher answered. This one's form kept shifting between male and female appearances. "You play with forces beyond your understanding." Peter moved to stand beside Alice. "We understand enough to make it work," he said firmly. "Our tests prove that." The third Watcher, who appeared older than the others, made a gesture. A hologram of Earth appeared between them, showing moments from human history. "Your species is young," it said, "aggressive, unpredictable. You are not ready for the power to reshape reality." "That's not your decision to make," a new voice declared. Admiral Howard strode into the room, flanked by 2 guards. Somehow, their communications were working again. Humanity has earned its advancement through science and determination. The first watcher turned its galaxy-filled eyes on Howard. "You do not comprehend the dangers. Reality is a delicate balance. One mistake could unravel existence itself." Alice stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "Then teach us," she suggested. "Work with us instead of trying to stop us." "We do not share power," the shifting watcher stated flatly. "For billions of years, we have maintained order. Species rise and fall, but none have threatened the basic structure of existence. Until now." Peter noticed something as they spoke. Each time the watchers moved, the reality readings on their instruments spiked. "You're not just maintaining reality," he realized aloud. "You're part of it. You need it to stay exactly as it is." The oldest watcher's expression flickered with something like concern. "Reality must remain stable." "For you," Howard countered. "But humanity has proven we can operate in altered states of reality. We've built technology that works even when the basic rules change." The watchers conferred silently, their forms shimmering with contained power. The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. "You have 24 of your hours," the first watcher announced. "Cease your reality manipulation research, or we will be forced to take action." Admiral Howard stood straighter. "And if we refuse?" "Then you will learn why we are called Watchers," the shifting one said. "We see all possibilities. In most of them, your species does not survive its own ambition." The golden light flared blindingly bright, and when it faded, the Watchers were gone. The room's normal lighting returned, and the pressure in the air disappeared. "Well," Peter said into the silence, "that could have gone better." Howard was already on his comm unit, connecting to Earth Command. "Get me the Security Council. Priority Alpha." He turned to Peter and Alice. "How quickly can you get your research data to the Mars backup facility?" Alice blinked in surprise. "You're not considering giving in to their demands?" "Of course not," Howard said grimly. "But we need to protect our progress. They showed their hand today. They're afraid of us, of what we might become." Peter was already working at his console, initiating data transfers. "They're right about one thing," he said. "We don't fully understand what we're doing. The power to change reality itself is exactly what we need." Howard finished. "Especially now that we know we're not alone in the universe, and our neighbors aren't friendly." Over the next several hours, the station buzzed with activity. Teams of scientists and military personnel worked to secure their research, while others analyzed every second of the Watcher's visit. Alice found herself in a heated debate with Earth's top physicists via quantum link, discussing the implications of what they'd learned. "The Watchers aren't just observers," she explained to the gathered experts. "They're bound to current reality. It's like they're living programs designed to maintain the universe's operating system. But we're learning to write new code." Peter added his own observations. "Their power is immense, but it's limited by their nature. They can only work within existing rules. We're learning to change the rules themselves." The quantum link crackled with excited discussions and worried arguments. Finally, the Security Council made its announcement. Humanity would not bow to the Watchers' demands. As the 24-hour deadline approached, Peter found Alice in their lab, reviewing the original calculations that had led to their breakthrough. "Having second thoughts?" he asked. She shook her head. "The opposite. I think I understand why they're really afraid." She showed him her latest calculations. "We're not just learning to change reality, Peter. We're proving that reality itself isn't fixed. Everything they believe in, everything they are. It's all just one possibility among many." The station's alerts suddenly blared to life. On their screens, thousands of energy signatures appeared, surrounding the solar system. "The Watchers warned us," Peter said softly. "Looks like we're about to find out what they'll do when they're not just watching." Admiral Howard's voice came over the station speakers. "All personnel, battle stations. Project Infinity is now entering Phase 2. May God, or whatever's really out there, help us all." As alarms rang through the station, Humanity prepared for its first war against beings that had once been worshipped as gods. The race to build their reality-ending dreadnoughts had just become a sprint for survival. The massive underground shipyard on Mars buzzed with activity. 1 month had passed since the Watchers' ultimatum, and humanity had responded not with surrender, but with determination. Deep beneath the red planet's surface, the first reality-ending dreadnought took shape. Commander Peter Richardson stood on the observation deck, watching robots assemble the enormous hull of the Defiance. The ship's skeleton stretched nearly a kilometer in length, its frame made from materials that hadn't existed 2 weeks ago. "Beautiful, isn't she?" Admiral Howard said, joining him at the window. "How's the reality drive coming along?" "Dr. Manning thinks she's solved the stability issue," Peter replied, pointing to the ship's core where a soft blue light pulsed. "The new containment field can handle up to 40% reality variance now." Below them, Alice Manning supervised the installation of the ship's quantum core. She barely slept in weeks, driven by both excitement and fear. The Watchers hadn't attacked yet, but their presence lingered at the edges of the solar system, like storm clouds on the horizon. "We've got movement," a technician called out. "Multiple energy signatures approaching Mars." Alice looked up from her work. "They're early. We need another week to finish the primary systems." "Show me," Howard ordered, and the main screen lit up with tactical data. Dozens of golden lights were moving through space, heading straight for Mars. Peter grabbed his tablet, checking the readings. "These aren't like the Watchers we met. The energy patterns are different. Simpler." "They're servants," Alice suggested, her eyes widening. "They're sending their army first." The shipyard's alert system activated, and red lights flashed throughout the facility. Howard was already issuing orders through his comm unit when the first impacts hit the surface above. "Get that ship ready," he commanded. "We need the reality drive operational now, even if nothing else is finished." Alice ran back to the quantum core, her team working frantically to complete the connections. Peter coordinated with the engineering crews, rushing to get basic systems online. The ceiling shook as another blast hit the surface. On the security feeds, they could see strange creatures materializing on Mars. They looked like living geometry, their bodies made of shifting shapes and angles that hurt the eyes. "The good news," Alice called out as she worked, "is that they're proving our theories right. Look at their attack pattern. They can only operate within existing physical laws. They're powerful, but they're confined by current reality." Peter understood what she meant. The enemy's weapons, while devastating, followed predictable rules. They weren't changing reality itself, just using its current laws with incredible power. "Core stability at 85%, one of Alice's technicians reported. We can activate the reality drive." Howard didn't hesitate. "Do it. Everyone else, clear the shipyard. Fall back to the secure bunkers." Alice initiated the startup sequence, and the Defiance's quantum core flared to life. Blue light rippled through the ship's skeleton, and reality itself seemed to bend around it. "It's working," Peter said, checking his instruments. "Local reality variance at 15% and holding steady." Above them, the geometric warriors had breached the first level of the facility. They moved like living fractals, breaking down doors and walls with mathematical precision. "We need to show them what this ship can do," Howard said. "Dr. Manning, can you create a demonstration?" Alice nodded, her fingers flying over the control panel. "Initiating local reality shift. Everyone brace yourselves." The reality drive hummed louder, and a wave of altered spacetime spread from the ship. In the affected area, the laws of physics began to change. Gravity reversed itself, electromagnetic forces shifted, and quantum probabilities realigned. On the security feeds, they watched as the geometric warriors hit the zone of altered reality. The creatures' perfect shapes began to distort and fail. Some of them simply fell apart, their fundamental structure unable to cope with the new rules of existence. "They're retreating," Peter announced, watching the tactical display. The remaining warriors were pulling back, vanishing in flashes of golden light. Howard allowed himself a small smile. "Send the footage to Earth Command. The Watchers need to see that we can defend ourselves." As if in response to his words, every screen in the facility suddenly filled with swirling symbols. The message was clear even before the translation appeared. "You dare to unmake our servants?" "No," Alice said, stepping forward. "We dare to make our own rules. Reality isn't your property to control." The symbols swirled faster, showing what might have been anger. "Your species cannot be trusted with such power." Peter checked the ship's readings. The reality drive was performing better than they'd hoped, maintaining a stable field even under combat conditions. "We're not asking for permission," he said. "We're taking our place in the universe." New symbols appeared, these ones darker and more complex. "Then you will face the consequences of your choice. We will not be so gentle next time." The messages vanished, leaving behind an eerie silence. Howard immediately began coordinating with Earth Command, while engineering teams rushed to complete the Defiance's construction. Later, in a quiet moment between crisis and action, Peter found Alice in her office, reviewing data from the battle. "You know what really scares them?" she asked without looking up. "It's not just that we can change reality. It's that we can imagine new kinds of reality they've never even considered. We're not just breaking their rules. We're writing entirely new ones." Peter nodded, understanding. "That's why we'll win in the end. They can only preserve what exists. We can create what's never existed before." The Defiance's quantum core pulsed steadily in the background, its blue light a beacon of human potential. Soon, it would be joined by other ships, the Challenger, the Vengeance, and more. Humanity's fleet of reality-ending dreadnoughts would show the Watchers that the universe was big enough for new ideas, new rules, and new powers. As they prepared for the greater battle to come, Peter couldn't help but smile. The Watchers had spent billions of years maintaining their version of reality. Now they would learn that reality, like humanity itself, refused to be confined by anyone's rules. The U.S. Defiance hung in space near Jupiter's orbit, its hull gleaming under the distant sunlight. Inside the bridge, Commander Peter Richardson watched as another reality wave rippled across their sensor screens. "They're getting stronger," he said, noting how the Watchers' attacks were increasing in power. "Dr. Manning, how are the shield modifications holding up?" Alice checked her readings from the science station. "Reality stabilization is at 92%. We're actually learning from their attacks." "Peter, each wave teaches us more about how they manipulate space-time." The ship shuddered as another blast of golden energy struck their protective field. This time, the attack came with a vision that all crew members saw in their minds. Images of planets crumbling and stars going dark. "They're trying to scare us," Admiral Howard said from his command chair, "showing us what they think will happen if we continue." The main screen flickered, and 3 Watchers appeared, their forms now much larger and more intimidating than during their first meeting. The beings towered over 1,000 feet tall in space, their bodies made of swirling stars and cosmic energy. "Last warning." Their voices boomed through the ship's communications. "Surrender your reality-altering technology, or face divine wrath." Howard stood from his chair, facing the screen. "This is Admiral Frank Howard of the U.S. Defiance. We decline your demand and counter with our own. Leave Earth space, or we'll show you exactly what our ship can do." The smallest of the giant Watchers raised its hand, and reality itself seemed to crack around the Defiance. The ship's alarms blared as space began to warp and twist. "They're trying to rewrite our local space-time," Alice shouted over the noise, "attempting to lock us into their version of reality." Peter rushed to the weapons station. "Initiating reality drive countermeasures. All hands, brace for reality shift." The Defiance's quantum core pulsed bright blue, and waves of altered space-time rolled out from the ship. Where the two forces met, the Watcher's golden energy and the ship's blue field, reality itself seemed to hesitate, unsure which rules to follow. Now we know why they're called Watchers, Peter said, studying the sensor data. They don't just observe reality. They enforce it, like immune systems attacking anything that doesn't match their pattern. Alice's eyes widened as she made a connection. That's it. Peter, they're not gods. They're programs. Ancient programs designed to maintain reality according to specific parameters. The ship rocked as another blast hit them. Howard gripped his chair's armrests. How does that help us? Because programs can be rewritten, Alice said, her fingers flying over her console. We don't have to fight their reality. We can establish our own and make it just as valid. Peter understood immediately. Like running two different operating systems side by side. Lieutenant Ryan, divert all spare power to the reality drive. The Defiance's engines hummed louder as energy flooded into the quantum core. The blue field around the ship grew stronger, pushing back against the Watcher's golden forces. Impossible, the largest Watcher boomed. Reality is singular and absolute. Not anymore, Alice replied, activating her new program. The ship's reality drive pulsed in a complex pattern, and suddenly the space around them split into overlapping zones of existence. The Watchers' forms flickered as they tried to maintain control over an area that now operated under multiple sets of physical laws. Their perfect geometries began to shift and crack. Their power depends on reality staying exactly as they designed it, Peter explained, watching the beams struggle. But we just proved that multiple versions can exist at once. Howard leaned forward in his chair. Push them back. Show them what humanity's version of reality looks like. The Defiance moved forward, its reality field expanding. Where it passed, space changed, not breaking down, but transforming into something new. The laws of physics bent and rewove themselves according to human calculations rather than the Watchers' ancient rules. The three cosmic beings began to retreat, their gigantic forms shrinking as they moved away from the zone of altered reality. But before they vanished, the oldest one spoke again. You do not understand what you have done. The barriers between realities were established for a reason. What comes through the cracks will be your responsibility. With that warning, they disappeared, leaving behind a space that sparkled with possibilities. The crew of the Defiance celebrated their first major victory, but Peter noticed that Alice looked troubled. What's wrong? He asked, approaching her station. We won. She pointed to her readings. Look at these energy patterns. When we created multiple reality zones, I detected something else. Like echoes from other places, the Watchers might be right about one thing. We might not be the only ones who notice when reality's walls get thin. Howard joined them, studying the data. Are you saying we need to be careful about how we use this technology? I'm saying we need to be ready, Alice replied. We've proven we can stand up to the Watchers, but they might not be the only beings interested in reality manipulation. We just announced to the universe that the locks on existence's door can be picked. Peter looked out at the space where they'd just fought beings that ancient humans had worshipped as gods. They'd won their first real battle. But Alice was right. This was just the beginning. Then we'd better build more ships, he said firmly. And make them stronger. Because if anything else is out there, they need to know that humanity isn't just capable of changing reality. We're ready to defend it too. The U.S. Defiance turned back toward Mars, where its sister ships were nearing completion. In its wake, space slowly settled back into normal patterns, but something had changed forever. The universe now knew that reality itself was no longer the exclusive domain of ancient cosmic programs. Humanity had claimed its place among the shapers of existence, and neither gods nor their programs could turn back that clock. As they traveled home, the crew couldn't help but wonder what other mysteries and challenges awaited them in a universe where reality itself was up for negotiation. The shipyards of Mars glowed with activity as the last touches were added to humanity's growing fleet. The U.S. Challenger and U.S. Vengeance floated beside their sister ship, the U.S. Defiance, each vessel over 1 kilometer long and powered by reality-altering quantum cores. Dr. Alice Manning stood in the command center, watching the final system checks on the main screen. 3 ships, she said softly. 3 chances to change everything. Commander Peter Richardson joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. More than chances, he said, handing her one of the cups. They're proof that we were right. The Watchers aren't all-powerful. They're just very, very old. The room's alerts suddenly flashed red. Admiral Howard rushed in, his face grim. They're coming. All of them. The main screen showed hundreds of golden lights approaching the solar system. Behind them came something else. Massive tiers in space itself, through which they could see strange landscapes and impossible geometries. The Watchers are bringing their full strength, Peter said, studying the tactical display. And they're doing something new, pulling in pieces of their own reality. Alice checked the sensor readings and gasped. They're not just bringing their reality here, she realized. They're trying to overwrite ours completely, replace our universe's laws with theirs. Howard grabbed the command center's microphone. All ships, battle stations. This is not a drill. Launch when ready. The 3 dreadnoughts powered up their engines, their quantum cores pulsing with blue light. As they rose from Mars, Peter noticed something strange about the enemy forces. Look at their formation, he said, pointing to the screen. They're not just attacking. They're forming a pattern, like a giant reality enforcement grid. Alice's eyes widened as she understood. They're trying to lock down our entire solar system, freeze it under their laws of physics. We need to break that pattern before it's complete. The 3 ships moved into position, their crews ready for the greatest battle humanity had ever faced. Howard's voice came through clear on all channels. U.S. Defiance, take the left flank. U.S. Challenger, right flank. U.S. Vengeance, you're with me up the middle. Remember your training, people. Reality itself is our weapon now. The Watchers' forces struck first. Golden energy beams lashed out, trying to rewrite the space around the human ships. But this time, humanity was ready. Reality shields holding. Peter called from his station on the Defiance. Initiating countermeasures now. All 3 ships activated their quantum cores at full power. Waves of blue energy rolled out, creating zones where human-written laws of physics took precedence. The Watchers' geometric warriors hit these zones and began to break down, their forms unable to exist under the new rules. They're adjusting, Alice warned, watching the enemy adapt. The Watchers are trying to find patterns we haven't changed, ways their reality can slip through ours. Howard's response was quick. Then we change everything. All ships. Execute pattern Omega. Let's show them what humanity's version of reality looks like. The 3 dreadnoughts moved in perfect sync, their reality fields combining and overlapping. Where they passed, space itself transformed. Gravity reversed, time flowed in new patterns, and the basic forces of nature rewrote themselves according to human designs. The Watchers appeared then, their giant forms manifesting between the stars. But something was different. They looked less confident, less godlike. Your actions threaten the very fabric of existence. They boomed across space. All reality must follow the original pattern. No, Alice replied, broadcasting on all frequencies. Reality can evolve. It can grow. Your pattern is just one possibility among many. The battle intensified. The Watchers pulled more of their reality into normal space, creating zones where their absolute laws held sway. The human ships countered by establishing their own zones, leading to a patchwork of competing realities throughout the solar system. Peter noticed something as they fought. Each time they established a new zone of human-controlled reality, it became easier to maintain. The universe itself is learning, he realized. It's accepting our changes as valid alternatives. Alice confirmed his observation. The Watcher's power comes from being the only pattern reality knows. But we're teaching it new patterns, showing it can exist in different ways. The geometric warriors began to retreat, their perfect forms unable to cope with rapidly shifting laws of physics. Even the Watchers themselves seemed to flicker and fade when caught in zones of human-altered reality. "One last warning," the eldest Watcher declared. "What you do here will have consequences beyond your understanding." Admiral Howard stood on his bridge, facing the cosmic beings without fear. "We understand enough. We understand that reality belongs to everyone who lives in it, not just those who came first. We understand that change is not just possible, but necessary." The Watcher's response was cut off as the U.S. Vengeance unleashed its main weapon, a focused beam of pure reality alteration that rewrote space itself in its path. The beam struck the center of the Watcher's formation, and for a moment, their perfect pattern shattered. In that moment, humanity saw the truth. Behind the Watcher's godlike facades were patterns of energy, complex but comprehensible. They were indeed programs, ancient and powerful, but ultimately limited by their own unchanging nature. "They're pulling back," Peter announced, watching the tactical display. "Their reality enforcement grid is breaking down." Alice studied her readings with growing excitement. "And look, the changes we made, they're holding. Parts of space are still running on our rules, stable and sustainable." The Watchers retreated, taking their geometric warriors with them. But before they vanished completely, they left one final message. "You have changed the rules of existence. Pray that you can live with the new game you have created." As the golden light faded from space, the crew of Earth's reality-ending Dreadnoughts celebrated their victory. But Peter noticed both Alice and Admiral Howard looking thoughtful. "What are you thinking?" he asked them. The Watchers were afraid. Alice said slowly, "Not just of us, but of something else. Something that might notice now that reality's walls are more flexible." Howard nodded. "Then we'd better keep building ships, because humanity just became reality's new guardians, whether we wanted the job or not." The three Dreadnoughts turned back toward Mars, their quantum cores still humming with power. They had won their first major battle, proving that humanity could stand against the self-proclaimed gods of reality itself. But as they headed home, Alice's screens picked up strange readings from the edges of space, whispers of other realities, other possibilities, now aware that the walls between worlds were no longer as solid as they once were. The age of the Watchers was ending. The age of humanity had begun, and somewhere in the vast darkness between realities, something else was watching, waiting, and learning from what they had done. 6 months after the great battle with the Watchers, Earth had changed in ways few could have imagined. Reality-stabilized colonies dotted the solar system, each one operating under slightly different laws of physics that humans had found more efficient for their specific needs. Commander Peter Richardson stood in the observation dome of the new Jupiter station, watching the massive gas giant swirl below. Thanks to reality manipulation, the station could safely orbit much closer to the planet than old physics would have allowed. "Still hard to believe sometimes, isn't it?" Dr. Alice Manning said, joining him at the window. "A year ago, we thought the laws of physics were fixed and unchangeable. Now we're writing new ones." Peter nodded, turning to look at the latest project taking shape in the shipyards nearby. The next generation of reality-ending Dreadnoughts were under construction, larger and more powerful than the first three. "Admiral Howard's latest report came in," he said. "The US Defiance found another tear in reality at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. That's the third one this month." Alice frowned, pulling up the data on her tablet. The tears were appearing more frequently now, places where the barrier between different versions of reality had grown thin. Sometimes they caught glimpses of other worlds through these tears, places where physics worked in ways that even they hadn't imagined. "The Watchers were right about one thing," she said. "We changed the game. Reality isn't as solid as it used to be." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert. The station's main screen activated, showing Admiral Howard's face. "We've got a situation," he said without preamble. "The deep space sensors just picked up something big. Really big." The screen split to show the sensor readings. Peter and Alice stared at the data in amazement. Something was moving toward the solar system, not through space, but through reality itself. It left ripples in existence as it traveled, like a ship moving through water. "It's not the Watchers," Alice said, studying the patterns. "This is different, more fluid, less rigid. Whatever it is, it noticed us," Howard replied. "Probably because of all the reality manipulation we've been doing. Like lighting a beacon in the dark." Peter checked the tactical display. "How long until it reaches us?" "At its current speed, 3 days," Howard answered. "I'm calling in all 3 dreadnoughts, but there's something else you need to see first." The Admiral sent them new data, readings from experiments Alice had been running on human brain patterns during reality manipulation. The results made her gasp. "This can't be right," she whispered, but the numbers didn't lie. "Peter, look at this. When humans are exposed to altered reality fields, our consciousness adapts, changes, almost like we're evolving to handle it." Peter leaned in to study the readings. "You mean humans are naturally learning to perceive and manipulate reality without technology?" "More than that," Alice said excitedly. "I think this is why we were able to challenge the Watchers in the first place. Their programs, fixed and unchanging. But human consciousness is flexible, adaptable. We don't just accept new realities. We thrive in them." The station shuddered slightly as reality rippled around them. Through the window, they could see the space around Jupiter shimmer like heat waves over hot pavement. "Whatever's coming," Howard said grimly. "It's affecting reality even from this distance. I want both of you on the Defiance when it arrives. If this turns into another fight, we'll need our best people." As they prepared to leave the station, Peter noticed something strange on one of the monitors. The reality tiers they'd been tracking weren't just random anomalies. They were forming a pattern. "Alice," he called, "look at this. If you map all the tiers we found, they'd make a shape, like a web or a network." She studied the pattern, her eyes widening. "Not a web," she realized. "A map. The tiers aren't random damage. They're like highways between different realities. And whatever's heading our way, it's using them to travel." Howard's voice came through their comms. "All ships report similar readings. Reality itself seems to be shifting, making way for something." Over the next 3 days, humanity prepared. The 3 original dreadnoughts, Defiance, Challenger, and Vengeance, took up defensive positions around Earth. The new ships under construction were rushed to completion, their reality drives powered up for the first time. But as the strange visitor finally approached, it became clear that this wasn't going to be like the battle with the Watchers. The being that emerged from the reality tear was beautiful and terrifying. A vast, shifting form that seemed to exist in multiple states at once. "Greetings, reality shapers," it communicated, not in words, but in concepts that bloomed directly in their minds. "We have watched your growth with great interest. We are humanity," Howard broadcast from the Defiance. "We've learned to adapt reality to our needs." "Yes," the being replied. "You have broken free from the Watcher's stagnant pattern. You have proven that reality can evolve. That is why we have come." Alice's instruments were going crazy, trying to measure something that seemed to exist in dozens of different states simultaneously. "It's not just one being," she realized. "It's many, all existing together in different versions of reality." "We've detected your reality tiers," Peter said to the being. "The pathways between different versions of existence. The multiverse is vast," the visitor explained. "The Watchers sought to keep each reality separate, unchanging. But you have shown that barriers can be crossed, that change is not only possible but necessary." Howard stepped forward. "Are you offering an alliance?" "We offer knowledge," the being replied. "Your species has taken its first steps into a larger reality. We can show you paths between worlds, teach you to navigate the spaces where different versions of existence meet." As the being spoke, more tiers appeared in space around them. But these weren't random rips in reality. They were doorways, carefully controlled openings to other versions of existence. Through them, humanity caught glimpses of incredible things, worlds where the laws of physics had evolved in completely different ways, civilizations that had mastered reality manipulation long ago, and versions of Earth where history had taken very different paths. The Watchers weren't gods, Alice said softly. They were just guardians of one way of existing. But reality is infinite. As humanity stood on the brink of this new understanding, their reality-ending dreadnoughts didn't seem so terrifying anymore. They were just tools, first steps on a journey that would take them far beyond what they had imagined. The being's final message echoed through their minds. The age of fixed reality is over. The age of infinite possibility has begun. Welcome, humanity, to the larger universe. And so, humanity's great adventure truly began. They had challenged gods and won, but in doing so, they had discovered something far more valuable than victory. They had found their place in a universe more vast and varied than they had ever dreamed possible. The reality-ending dreadnoughts would remain, protecting Earth and its colonies, but they were no longer weapons of war. Instead, they became exploration vessels, ships capable of navigating the endless seas of possibility that lay between different versions of reality. As Peter and Alice stood on the bridge of the Defiance, preparing for their first journey through one of the reality tiers, they couldn't help but smile. They had set out to defend humanity's right to exist on its own terms, and in doing so, they had opened the door to every possible way of existing. The universe, they had learned, was not just stranger than they had imagined, it was stranger than they could have imagined, and humanity was finally ready to explore it all.